I am the co-chair for the Student Life Committee.
I'm on the Global University Committee.
The Environmental Affairs Committee.
PSAC, which is the Public Service and Advocacy Committee.
I'm the co-chair for Student Life.
I am the director of the Eve Carson Scholarship.
We have a chance to make a lot of change.
We're thinking long-term.
An endless amount of ideas and
Passion, energy, and growth.
And part of the Carolina Way.
We're also collaborating with international alumni all over the world, and it's so different from any other university in the world.
This year we're starting something new called Office Hours in the Pit.
We want to help students find the things that they can be a part of that can really make their Carolina experience better.
Because our job is to get people more involved in organizations. The Carolina Marketplace,
the Public Service Fair,
an environmental roundtable, the Gap Year Task Force,
Carolina Men's Networking Night,
Green Events Initiative,
Tech and Web,
just because we do so much.
Fall Fest,
the Eve Ball,
the Admissions Ambassador Abroad Program, and the Game Day Challenge.
Student government really is the bridging organization for all of these different service activities.
Getting involved is super easy.
You can go to unc.edu/studgov and we're right there with our contact information.
Embrace Carolina.
I am the first student.
We at Carolina really pride in the fact that Hinton James is our first student because we're actually the first public university. So we like to celebrate that every year as Order of the Bell Tower, the official student ambassadors and tradition keepers of the university, by throwing a party out in front of the historic Wilson Library. So we do a lot of events that work to connect past, present, and future Tar Heels.
I'm Hinton James. I am basically the first student to come to UNC, and I walked all the way from Wilmington, about 170 miles, pretty long distance. But I came back to celebrate today because, I mean, it's the 218th anniversary. You see there's lots of very vibrant people on campus now, lots of laughing and joyous faces, and all these new buildings. I'm lost. I need to start asking people for directions. You would think I would know where I was going, but I don't know, I guess not.
I think it's a great way for students to learn not only about the history of the university, but just about being prideful in their university and its history as well.
We're here in the middle of a field in Burt County, and in a sense you think, well, this is one little place, but the story is a story that was repeated across the continent. This is the site at which you have an episode of the colonial encounter, the classic colonial encounter.
From the written accounts of the Juan Pardo expeditions, we know that Fort San Juan and Cuenca were established adjacent to the principal town of the Native American province of Juara. This was the capital town of that chiefdom.
There's something almost criminal about not explaining to people why it's important, why they should care. We know that there was Fort San Juan here. There was another fort about somewhere near modern Salisbury, so maybe 150 miles east of here. There was another fort down around Camden, South Carolina, so maybe 150 to 200 miles south of here. Together, those three forts, those are three of the 6 forts that Pardo built, but those 3 formed a triangle. In the middle of that triangle, Charlotte is pretty close to the middle of that triangle. Charlotte was the site of the first gold rush in the United States back at the end of the 18th century, early 19th century. And you could pick the gold up out of the creeks. There are still abandoned gold mines in the area 30, 40 miles south of here. Every hill has an abandoned gold mine in it. The Spaniards who were here, and the Spaniards who were at Salisbury, and the Spaniards who were at Camden were prospecting every day. They talk about it in the accounts they left behind. They were out looking for gold and looking for gems and diamonds and rubies. Had these forts lasted a little bit longer than they did, the Spaniards going back and forth between these different forts on these Indian roads would have found the gold in those creeks because it was just laying there. They weren't having to dig, 200-meter tunnels into the mountains to get the gold. It was laying right there in the creeks. Had the Spaniards found that gold, then there's a Spanish gold rush in North Carolina in the 1560s. If there's a Spanish gold rush here, with it come the Spanish estates, the Spanish plantations, the Spanish slaves, horses, etc., etc. And there's no Jamestown. There's no Charlestown. Basically, everything south of the Mason-Dixon line becomes part of Latin America. So basically, the history of the United States as we know it is changed dramatically when this fort is burned down. When the Indians here decide they've had enough of the Spaniards and they burn down the fort and they burn down the other 6 forts as well, it doesn't just change the history of the Spaniards here in the 1560s. It changes everything about how the United States comes out of that and how we know the United States, which changes the history of the world. So a small event in a small backwater place has an impact on the way the rest of the world is structured 500 years later.